Hi, listeners. Today we have the author of the upcoming book, July of 2020. It's called Anxiety, I Am So Done With You, a teen's guide to ditching toxic stress and hardwiring your brain for happiness, with LCSW Jodi Amon. Exciting show. We talked a lot about Gen Z and their parents. So tune in and listen to how you as a parent can help with the anxiety of your teens and what they can do for themselves as well. Thanks for joining us.
I'm not the house of cards that falls down easily. I'm strong enough to handle what you throw at me.
Welcome to Mental Health News Radio. I'm your host, Kristin and Jodi. Just what are we going to discuss? The intimacy that is mental health. Let's continue to make it as comfortable as discussing brain health or heart health. This show has been on the air for several years, and we have amazing co-hosts. And then we created a network of podcasters on mentalhealthnewsradionetwork.com, a place where every possible facet of mental well-being can be talked about openly. My show, after several hundred interviews, the format is this: intimate, deep, funny, touching, sometimes uncomfortable, but always vulnerable conversations with interesting people. The goal is to have you, our listening family, many of you who have become my good friends, feel as though you are listening in on private conversations. Thank you for tuning in and becoming part of this amazing journey with me, and now with our network of podcasters. Just knowing this podcast might be helping any of you realize you are not alone on this journey called being a human being makes doing this podcast worth every second.
After all we promised, we'd be cordial.
Jodi, thank you so much for coming on Mental Health News Radio.
So glad to be here.
I love the gentleman that you work with, Matt Pappas.
He's the best. He's really the best.
He's probably going to kill me because I never remember if it's Pappas or Pappas.
I don't actually either. I thought you were telling me something.
I always mess it up because now it's a thing that I'm going to mess it up. So that makes it even worse. It's like if I see someone that's wearing, a religious symbol on their body, I immediately want to curse. It's sort of a Tourette's kind of a thing. But anyway, I do that with names too, where I just don't remember. And he's going to listen to this and go, thanks, Kristin.
Yeah, that's hysterical. Yeah. So.
Well, I know that you've got a book coming out, and we talked a little bit before you came on. I did an intro of you to our listeners, the work that you do with around anxiety. So tell our listeners the name of the book and when exactly it's coming out.
Well, the book is called Anxiety, I'm So Done With You, a teen's guide to ditching toxic stress and rewiring their brain for happiness. And it came out July 21st.
Nice. So why the focus on the teen population?
Well, I think that there really have been in crisis for a really long time, and it's increasing. Yeah. It's like your heart breaks. I'm a mom of teens myself, but I'm a psychotherapist. So in practice, I work with a lot of teens, and parents are just like, we don't even know what to do. It's getting worse. Kids are feeling more and more out of control. Then people are worried about that sense of entitlement and how is it all connected to each other. And so we're like, are we preparing these kids to survive in the world? Right. And then, because when they are struggling with their emotional wellness, like when they have anxiety or depression, what we're doing is like, we take things off their plate. So we're kind of giving them the message that they can't cope or they can't do things. And it's the opposite. I actually did a TEDx talk on TEDxWilmington on calm anxious kids with simple chores, and thinking about how the removal of chores or getting them to do hard things or getting them to work is actually to their great detriment.
Oh, believe me, I think that's so funny. I stayed with someone for a while who child was completely addicted to marijuana to the point where like my eyes were tearing up downstairs in another room. This is a teenager. And I mean, would literally just leave a dish of food that they just ate on a table and the can on the counter and just
push their chair out and walk away. Oh, well, I don't want to bother him because, he's struggling. And I'm like, bother him. You're not doing the kid any favors by not making him actually, like put his dishes in the dishwasher.
Right. People don't know they could do something until after they've done it. And so we really have to, if we want to build our kids' confidence, which is the answer to helping them feel better about themselves and feel calmer, is we have to have them do hard things. And it's really missing a lot. And I'm not parent blaming, because I'm not interested in parent blaming. I think that makes it all worse. Like, the parents are already blaming themselves too much. And so I don't really even like those articles that are just pointing the finger at parents that it's all their fault. It's really, I think it's like our commercialism. We're kind of telling everyone they're worthy to get whatever they want. And then when they don't get it.
But you don't have to work to get that stuff. It just magically appears in front of you.
Exactly. But it's good for the companies, because so you're going to love my TEDx talk. We're like a like minds, you and I think, but it's like, the companies don't want you to think you have to do hard work, because then you're not going to buy their products. So they have to kind of overcome that, but it's to the real great detriment of this next generation. We were starting to get it when I was young, but at least we had some work ethic.
Right.
And so that's missing. Like, the whole cause and effect is missing from that. Like, kids don't understand that there's a cause for something and there's effect of it. And it's a really shame. And that's why anxiety is going up and up and up, actually.
Absolutely. The best thing for my son was, listen, as much as I say, oh, I had a friend that did this, there are 87 or more things that I did that they could go, can you believe Kristin did that ruined her kid forever? So I'm totally hear you on that one. But the best thing that happened for him after me was going into the Marines, because then he came home after boot camp and like cleaned the kitchen and mopped. And I was like, who is this child?
Right.
Did an alien take over your body? And he was like, oh, Mom, I so appreciate how much you were on my ass all the time, but you are nothing compared to my drill instructor.
Right. It's like, when you feel you can't do anything to change your life, you feel completely out of control.
Yep.
And and so he learned that, hey, I could do something to make a difference, and I better, or else, there's negative consequences, and boom, like, you come online, you like your agency, your empowerment comes online, and that's what we really have to show people.
And that's the biggest thing too, that I'm learning in what's gone on in the world with, 2020 being the year of COVID-19 coronavirus. I'm learning how much I have this generation of women in my family who, when we have had severe trauma, early childhood trauma, and then we sit in our anxiety. And so I'm learning so much about, okay, get up and move. It isn't so much that, yes, I'm going to feel great that I accomplished something, but the fact to get up and like clean something or organize something or whatever, is that act itself, regardless of the outcome, is going to shift the molecules in your body, and you are going to feel better just from that.
Do you know why that is?
No, I've heard, but I would rather hear it from you, because you're the expert.
So adrenaline is the stress hormone, the anxiety hormone, and that could go up. And there's another hormone called the GABA hormone, and the GABA hormone puts the brakes on the anxiety. It's a parasympathetic nervous system. It's like when your body says everything's okay, the GABA comes online, and it flushes out all the adrenaline and calms you. And what brings that GABA online is taking action, doing something. And so also doing something distracts you, it builds your confidence and all that other stuff. But the physiological effects, you're feeling it. If you're anxious and you get in bed or sit in a chair and rock, worst thing you could do. But that's what we do, is when we're anxious, we do pull back from everything, and it actually makes it so much worse. Or God forbid, stop working because you're anxious, because it makes it, or not go to school. Like it just makes you sit in anxiety, and it's so much worse. So, taking action is like physiologically and emotionally and mentally good for you, when you're anxious.
I think that's why animals are so helpful too, because yes, you can be so depressed that I have been around people that are so depressed that they literally don't care if their dogs are peeing in the house. So that it's not always a cure-all, but for me, like these dogs of mine are so happy. Like if I go to the bathroom, okay, this is just going to the bathroom and then come out. It's like I've been gone for 10 years and they're so happy to see me.
They're so in the present moment. I love
Yes,
it.
exactly.
Love it.
Stay with my horse. Like every day that she sees me, she looks at me and she's like, hey, oh my God, you're still here?
Yeah. It's so wonderful. So wonderful. Someone loves it. It's just unconditional love in present moment. Man,
Yes. Yeah, they're
we
not
just
running
need to
around.
Yeah.
They're not running around thinking, oh, this coronavirus. Not that we shouldn't be, but that's what has helped me through this time too, is going, look at those dogs playing in the backyard, just round and round and round and round. They are not the people I just saw screaming at each other for standing too close at the grocery store. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And they shake it out. You see animals
Yes,
when
movement.
after a predator was chasing them and they finally got away, they like shake all of that adrenaline like right out. And we're the only primate that doesn't have that when they're picking the, what is that called, social grooming. We're the only primate, and that social grooming for other apes and monkeys, that helps decrease their adrenaline. Like that helps regulate their nervous system. We don't have that. We have touching. But this is what's so hard for teenagers right now, is because they're kind of not cuddling with their parents as much. And, and they're maybe a little bit insecure to like start romance. They're at that cusp of it.
Right.
And so they're getting less touch in general, and that's increasing their anxiety as well.
Well, I'm having my ex-husband, which my listeners know that whole story, but he's moving in with me again, and we've known each other for 30 some years now, and he's very touchy feely. So I'm going to tell him when he moves in, you can go ahead and start grooming me again. And I will do the same for him.
It's beautiful. Physical touch is so healing. We really need it. Like we need connection. We're social beings and we need connection.
Absolutely.
And there's a lot of reasons in our life right now that we feel disconnected. And I think that's another reason for, this mental health crisis among young people.
Oh, absolutely. Now you've got many books. You've got U1, Anxiety Zero, Anxiety and Panic Workbook, Keep Calm Coloring, Understanding Pain, Anger, and Worry. So how have you kept your anxiety manageable while also writing so many books?
Well, really, I tell my story, and U1 Anxiety Zero, it's the most thorough book that's out there that I have, and those four. But in Anxiety, I'm So Done With You is so comprehensive, and it's really aimed for teenagers. So I love it. But people over 13 have read my other book over the last few years since it's been out, and I do tell my story a lot more. I tell it a little bit in Anxiety, I'm So Done With You, but I really go into a lot of my examples because I had bad panic attacks for 2 decades, and I totally cured myself of anxiety, and then I helped my clients do it, and with the same kind of 6-step method. And then I helped them over and over for the next 20 years. And I said, I have to share this with more people. And I love Matt because Matt's like, it's the best book out there on anxiety. He's my biggest fan. I love
cheerleader. Yeah. I know. And he is. And
he's the best.
Yeah. And it's true. It's a muscle that needs to constantly be worked. It's that same thing. You can't get sedentary about managing your anxiety. You've got to keep it up.
I like to think of it a different way. I like to think like you can definitely cure your anxiety, but you have to continuing to make yourself happy. Like people aren't just happy. We have to generate happiness. We have to constantly bring things in our life. I mean, there's things every day that bring us down or hurt us or age us. And so I call the formula for happiness that I do, that I think of, is we have to get rid of the things that upset us because they're coming at us all the time. And that could be including anxiety that gets triggered by some things that happen to us. And then we have to bring in good things that give us joy, things that give us emotional wellness. We have to constantly bring that in. We don't just are happy and then we're staying there. We have to generate that day in and day out. And then the third step of this formula for happiness is practice. So get rid of things, bring things in, and then practice that each day. Like you can't just be sedentary and be like, okay, I decided I'm happy now. And that's
right.
it. You have to keep practicing these, self-care skills. We know, there's tons of research out there. We know what increases our emotional wellness. We know what makes us happy. And so we just have to commit to those things.
Yeah, I called a friend of mine that we all lovingly call Jeevers. He's a formulator, and he's also the CEO of this CBD product company. And I started taking his products, and it was amazing how quickly they started to work. But I called him the other day to say, what can I do for this kind of thing? And what I love about how he thinks, which is what you're talking about, is he said, well, listen, I don't want you to run to a supplement like that's going to be the answer, because that's not how it works. It's a supplement. You have to do the work. The supplement will help the work that you're already doing. And I was like, that is somebody that tells the truth.
I love that because, sometimes people wait like 3 to 5 years before they get help with their anxiety or their depression or whatever they're going through, even if they're going through grief. And most of our problems, our emotional problems, come from a context or something. We've either had trauma or a bad relationship or, some context of struggle that, it's regular for humans to have responses and hurt feelings and hurt and loss from things. It's normal and regular. And so people think that they judge themselves right away, and they think they're pathological, and they think they have to fix themselves, so they don't go out and get help. But help is out there. You don't have to suffer like this. Unfortunately, there's often some mental health professionals that told them, you're going to have this forever and you'll just have to manage it. Right. That's the worst thing to tell someone who has anxiety, because it's not, it's temporary. Some people have anxiety for a short period of time and get over it. And then some people have it forever. And what the difference is the people who have it forever, they believe that they need to, because someone told them that. It's too bad. Because that's a lot of suffering over a long period of time. And I've been there, so I know.
Very true. Can I throw some questions out to you?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Because the one of them really also can easily apply to me. But and when we're airing this is far enough away from the time that it's happening, so no one will listen and think she's talking about me. But I had a listener kind of bring it up, and I went, oh my gosh. So anyway, the question is, so let's say you do something that, can be stressful, like moving to a new place to live. And so you're, that is in it of itself can be anxiety producing. Mm-hmm. And maybe doing it when in the midst of like something like the COVID-19 stuff going on. Mm-hmm. Right. And then having neighbors going through their own stuff because they're stressed, but they're not people that and constantly in your face, giving you helpful hints on how you should do this and should do that, and how you should talk to the neighborhood and how you should blah, 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 blah. And no matter how many times you tell them, no, thank you, but no, what I really just want is privacy. They continue, like the minute you open your door, they're like, Jiminy Cricket. So that can also be anxiety producing, because you're already going through your stuff. You're in a new situation. And then you've got people that when you say no, they're like, oh, you're holding a red cape and I'm the bull. Instead of leaving you alone, I'm going to run towards you, because that's what no means to me.
Right. There are definitely people like that.
Oh yeah. Right? Yes. And that
they don't see a boundary without it being a challenge, and they want to break through it.
Exactly. So how, especially with teenagers that are, learning about boundaries and how to do them with maybe not so much volume or too little volume, how would you, have a teenager and an adult approach that kind of a situation?
Well, I mean, you could do, when you're dealing with difficult people, I mean, that's one aspect of a difficult person, someone who doesn't respect your boundaries. And one is you have to get physical distance from them. Sometimes it's hard when you live near them. It depends, how you move around and what you do. And then sometimes it's like you have to have your own boundaries, right?
Right.
So when you set boundaries with somebody, they're in their own agenda. You can't really expect them. Some people do respect them, but you can't expect people to respect boundaries. So you have to put boundaries up for yourself and not let anyone cross. So that's a mistake most people make. They say, please respect my boundaries. Please respect my boundaries. Nobody, they don't care about your boundaries. They care about their own survival or what their fear that is telling them that they have to do this or get the answers or whatever. That's their priority. Your boundaries are not. For some people who are well balanced, of course they'll respect them. But the people you want to set boundaries with are not good at that, or it triggers them. Some people, you give them a boundary and they're triggered and their anxiety goes up, and then they really are pushing more.
Right.
So you have to say, I'm not available this time to this time, and you don't even have to tell them. Whether you tell them or not, it doesn't matter. It's like you close up shop and are not available. If that makes sense. So I had a client who was I wish I had an example of a teenager, but I had a client who, I have tons of examples of a teenager, but a client who's a real estate agent, and her customers call her at all time of the day and night, like 11 at night. This is not an emergency. They're asking about a contract. And so, she could ask them to be nice. They're still not going to do it. I'm like, you need to take your phone in the other room and not have it. Like after 9, you just don't, you're not accessible. Like you have to set your own boundaries. I do have a YouTube video on this about setting awesome personal boundaries, because I think that's what people miss all the time. We want to know how to get people to respect our boundaries, and you can't. You have to set them and be very, very secure and consistent in the boundaries that you set. You're just not available for it. And so physical distance is one thing, but also I call it the spiritual eye roll, or not really. It's like the energetic eye roll is what I call it. Like, sometimes you just don't let that in. Like people are going to have their own thing and they're going to have their own anxiety. And you could take that in as judgment, or you could take that in as like something to be afraid of, or you could block it from coming in. That means you don't have to say anything to them. You could just nod or kind of ignore it a little bit. But the eye roll, the energetic eye roll, is sort of like a shield, that so none of that could come in onto you. And that really helps people, because we think we have to take it in. Now there's all this highly sensitive people. I agree, that is the thing. People are empathetic, empathic. And so they're sensitive to other people's negativity. But I think this opened up this idea that we have to take that in. And I love these books and this literature because it's really helping people feel validated. I mean, they felt crazy, but it's really helping people feel validated. But it also is not like, but you don't have to. Now that you know that you're sensitive, this is now how to block it. You don't have to take that in. It's not like a life sentence. You're sensitive, and so you have to stay home now. So I really am trying to get that message out. That's a huge part of my message in this book and in my videos, and really trying to help people trust themselves, set their own boundaries, not take in that stuff from others. I think that's really important to teach teenagers. And we have to model that as adults, really.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and that you're right. The piece that was tripping me up, and I think this listener too, because we talked about it a little bit, is that we will get upset that they're not respecting the boundaries that we've set. And you don't need to take that on. You can say no, and it might mean, I mean, I turned it into a game. Okay, how many times are they going to ask me something today that I told them I've said no already the last 5 days in a row? And I turned it into a game. Okay, if they do it twice, I get to eat a cookie. Like I make it a funny like that, because these people are not going to change. This is
their anxiety. This means that person has a lot of anxiety, and this is how they cope with it, by trying to, I don't know,
manage and control other people.
Right.
Yeah,
exactly. Save you, or, or ask you questions to get reassurance for themselves. Whatever they're doing that's pushing past your boundaries, this is a symbol that they're highly anxious. And if you knew that, you might not take it as personally. I mean, first you have to have compassion for yourself.
Right.
Anytime someone bugs you, first things first, you don't just not take it personally. like we need a validation first. So you have to have compassion for yourself. So you feel that validation, only then you could kind of take a step back and be like, whoa, what is going on for them? They are really hyper miserable, and this is very, very sad. And that compassion for them would really help you know what steps to take.
Yeah, and it's interesting too, because if it's a couple, and I know from my own marriage that I am absolutely certain that we drove employees crazy when we were running a company together, because Michael would tell people one thing and I would tell them the complete opposite, and they would sit there and look at us like, who do we? And that happens too with couples, especially a couple that is like on the verge of divorce or breaking up, and so their misery with each other is bleeding out onto other people as well.
Yeah, mean people are mean, or miserable people kind of overload that misery onto other people all the time. And and so, but we think it's us. When a lot of people hurt you, you're like, I'm the most common denominator. It must be me. No, just lots of people don't like themselves.
You know what? That's so
why
funny.
It's so common. Yeah.
I used to say that all the time. Like that was my mantra of being in so much therapy was, okay, I'm the one that keeps having this show up. So it's me. And that's great for self-examination. But then I got to a place where I was like, okay, you know what? That isn't always an indicator of me. I'm going to loosen the reins on that thought process.
Yeah. Like there's such an emphasis on people taking responsibility, and that's good. But this is the problem is that's not the message for everybody. Like everyone's got their own stuff. Some people are way left and they have to come right. Some people are way right and have to come left. I'm not talking politically. I'm talking some people blame themselves totally and need to ease up. And some people take no responsibility for themselves and need an invitation to responsibility. And so we can't give everyone a ham sandwich, in terms of how they need to heal. We need to really understand where they're at. And so that's a problem. I see that all the time. People who take over responsibility, trying to take more because that's what like their coach or their therapist or everything. And it's like, it's highly damaging. And, I'm trying to undamage them. People think that like, I have to love myself before I can get in a relationship. We're only a self in relationship. So if you stay isolated, you're just going to feel worse. And that doesn't have to be romantic. It has to be somebody, but there's this discourse that we have to love ourselves first, and it's highly damaging to people. Because we're only a self and reflection from the people around us. So you got to get good people around you. If you want to love yourself, you got to get good people around you, because you're going to reflect back and be like, oh, this is who I am.
Yeah. And I'll say this too. I've noticed this when you do have that circle that you've cultivated, that you've worked really hard. Like I have this podcast network. And so, friends and colleagues, and we're in this mental health bubble, and, we each have our stuff that, flares at different times, but it's such a wonderful group of people. And I mean, you're a part of that too, since you do shows with Matt. So sometimes, even though that's wonderful and I love it, sometimes when I'm in situations where I'm not in the bubble of mental health, I go, ooh, that's harsh. That's what it's like outside of this bubble. Got it. Don't take it personally that this isn't my little bubble,
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And there's a lot of people just, trying to show you your shadows. They think that that's a way to help people heal, but we have enough shadows. Like we need to see our skills and our abilities. We need to see our uniqueness and our resilience, and so that's what I'm kind of for.
Do you work with parents who have kids that are on the autism spectrum?
Not that much. I'm open to it, but it's not a specialty that I have.
Okay, gotcha.
So I've only, a handful of them here and there over the years. But it's just kind of like any challenge that you have is like trying to negotiate and trying to, find your empowerment in the difficulty.
Right.
Yeah. But I do work with a lot of parents of, kids of all ages going through different difficulty and different struggles. And so, I mean, obviously it's different and the same in some ways.
Absolutely. Well, I like, ditching toxic stress and rewiring your brain for happiness. I love that because those two go hand in hand. And what's interesting is
I've got a shaman that I work with, and she'll also say, well, remember we had a conversation yesterday and I was really excited about something. And she said, I want you to take that feeling that you have right now, and I want you to put it in this, put it somewhere safe within you. And then whenever you're feeling really, really stressed again, because you're human, I want you to reach for that feeling.
Oh, it's beautiful.
And I think about that in terms of knowing in myself, we're constantly needing to rewire our brain for happiness, because you're right. It doesn't just come,
No, you have to
naturally.
practice it every day. I have a Jodi love folder. So when I get any kind of appreciation from my readers or my viewers on social media, I keep that in a folder. So those days when I get the trolls or someone being negative to me, I could read that and be like, okay, not everyone thinks this, it's a place where it's like a touchstone to go to some joy or some appreciation when you need it the most.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So can you give
in the book, let me just say one thing.
Sure,
in the book, I do have the teens. The book is for teens. So parents are like, want their hands on it and they could get their own copy, but the book is written, speaking to the teen, and there's write-in sections that they're doing the exercises that are tried and true and helping them feel better. And one of the exercises is to have a good friend or someone who loves them write a note to them, and they tape it in the book. So there's a touchstone that they could go to feel that good feeling.
Yeah, all those exercises. I did this as a teenager because I was in a lot of therapy as a teenager, but we did one where we all walked around with a piece of blank paper taped on our backs, and you pick somebody and then you write wonderful things that you've noticed about them, and you don't know who wrote what. And there could be, if there's 10 people doing this exercise, you have 10 great things about you written on this piece of paper. And that was so great as a teenager. And then I took that and I forced an office I was working with to do that with a bunch of adults. And it was
awesome.
It was the same great thing. And I still have both of those pieces of paper.
Oh, a treasure.
Yeah.
I wish everyone had those opportunities.
And there's something you have to make happen. Hey, with everyone that's had to stay home, to isolate for combating the spread of coronavirus, I hope that a lot of people did things like that while they were at home.
Yes, I hope so. I think that, we're recording this in the middle of the coronavirus, and hopefully things have eased up by the time this airs. But I think people are finding some really unique resilience that they just didn't even know that they had. And so, I'm looking forward to those kind of conversations. They're already happening. They're already happening with the people that I'm working with that are finding their skills that they didn't know they have. And that's a message I really want to give teenagers, and I think comes really through this book. This gentleness, this like compassion, this warmth, and like, you got this. Like, humans are highly adaptable,
right?
And you could adapt. People are scared that you don't have the skills. That's not true. When push comes to shove, like, we adapt and we have the skills. And so I really hope this is a message of hope, and it's already showing up, with the beta readers, that it's going to make a real difference. So I'm excited.
Fantastic. And everyone should check out your TEDxWilmington talk, Calm Anxious Kids. I wish I would have heard that. My son is now 30. I wish that was there when I was raising him. But tell our listeners one more time the name of the book that's coming out in July of 2020.
Anxiety, I'm So Done With You. A Teen's Guide to Ditching Toxic Stress and Rewiring Your Brain for Happiness.
And you work with adults and teens.
Yeah, I work with kids, teens, adults, couples, all ages really. But, I love teens. They just have a special place in my heart because they're just wanting to be good people and wanting to make a difference and matter. And I really want to give them the tools to do that.
Absolutely. And I love in your description on your website, as a mom of teens, she double dog gets it.
Yeah.
Well, tell our listeners where they can find out more about you.
Okay, well, my website's jodiaman.com, jodiaman.com. And from the bottom and the footer there, you could get all my social media accounts. So come hang out with me. I put out free videos all the time. And I have blogs coming out as well. And so lots of programs. I help people develop their intuition. I help them come from anxiety. I help parent. I have a lot of parenting programs on there. So I have a lot of resources for people. So come hang out. And we'll see what you need.
Yeah. And you also do, how often are you doing shows with Matt?
Well, Matt and I are business partners now. And so we're, kind of creating our own, well, he's kind of come into my business and helping me create the structure part.
Nice.
So I could just create. So I have my own podcast, which I haven't uploaded anything for over a year. Called Love Yourself Up. I know, but it's coming back.
Please, and then please, let's put it on this network. Our listeners will need it. Need it.
Okay, yeah. So it's called Love Yourself Up. My YouTube channel is Jodi Eamon Practical Miracles, and on Facebook, I'm Jodi Eamon Live Happier.
Nice. Well, Jodi, I'm glad that Matt put us together, and thank you so much for coming on my show.
Oh, it's been wonderful. Thank you so much, Kristin.
And listeners, thank you for tuning in to another episode of Mental Health News Radio. Hi, listeners. I'll make it quick. These are some really cool places that give discounts and other cool things for listeners of Mental Health News Radio Network. If you want to get amazing help with healing from narcissistic abuse, go to healfromanarcissist.com. If you want CBD products that are the best of the best, I use them myself, go to Proze, PROZE.com, and use the code mentalhealth20, mentalhealth20. If you want to get daily perk ups that help retrain your brain to think more positively, go to perkupdaily.com. And also, just because this one's fun, snarkycandles.com. I guarantee you'll love them. Snarky with a Y, SNARKY candles.com. And don't forget, if you want to hear all the shows on the network about first responders, you can go to firstrespondernmentalhealthnetwork.com, and all of our shows that focus on narcissistic abuse, narcissisticabusehhealingnetwork.com. Thanks for listening, and back to the show.
Sometimes I'm passive aggressive, but never without good intentions. I heat up and act on my emotions.
Thanks so much for listening to Mental Health News Radio. Our podcast can be found on iTunes, Stitcher, and hundreds of other podcast apps, or you can visit our website at mentalhealthnewsradio.com. If you have a question or would like to be a guest, become a podcaster on our network, or join the amazing organizations that help keep us on the air, please email us at info@mhnrnetwork.com. Get ready for that special goodbye from our resident therapy dog, Miles, and a special thanks to Emily Sohn for letting us use her incredible song, Cordial, for our podcast music. Listen to the full song on SoundCloud at emily.sonne.
Don't be surprised when I don't hate on you. After all, we promised we'd be cordial. Sometimes in you I can find it, but I'm opposing.
Good boy.